Jack Walten. Meet Jack Walten. Jack is a Chilean entrepreneur, co-founder of Bunny Smiles Inc. and Bond's Burgers, and father of 3. Born in 1932, Jack moved to Michigan, USA at some point in his childhood and met his wife Rosemary in 1952. He met his best friend and business partner Felix in school. After receiving his degree in 1959, he married Rosemary. In 1962, Jack and Felix concocted a revolutionary idea, a business chain that acted as both a restaurant and an entertainment center for children. The two pitched the idea to a technology company that could develop adorable animatronics for the business. Roughly 5 years later, Bunny Smiles Inc. was born. Jack handled the finances, his wife designed the robots, and Felix probably did something useful too. Jack became popular in the community, supported his family, worked with his best friend, and pursued his passion project all at the same time. What could possibly go wrong? On the evening of May 2nd, 1974, disaster struck. Felix, as a favor to Jack and Rosemary, had agreed to bring Edward and Molly Walten to a school party. He was supposed to have them home safely just after 9 p.m. Instead, Felix drank heavily while the two children played. More on that later. On the way home, Felix crashed the car and killed both children. While Felix tended to quietly burying the two kids in a forest with no intention of letting their parents know what happened, Jack paced his home and called his friend nonstop, frantically reminding him via voicemail that the kids were supposed to be home 3 hours before. When he and Rosemary are told what happened, Jack is naturally grief-stricken. He exhibits bizarre and withdrawn behavior until he mysteriously disappears on June 11th, 1974. Felix Kranken. Felix Kranken is one of the minor antagonists of the series and co-founder of Bond's Burgers. He is a close friend to the Walten family and a severe alcoholic. He's always dressed in business attire but looks tired and a bit disheveled. He was once married to a woman named Linda, but she grew tired of his alcoholism, privately journaling her struggles with Felix, and eventually left. Aside from the substance use, he's demonstrably driven, ambitious, and arguably a bit egotistical. After the closure of Bond's Burgers, he initiated the Relocate project with hopes of starting a new restaurant of a similar concept, storing all of the animatronics in a nigh-abandoned warehouse with a few employees guarding it. The project has thus far proved to be impossible given the state of the animatronics and the lack of resources provided to the technicians to repair them. Instead, the robotic creatures rot in a warehouse, collecting new victims. Felix had a close relationship with the Walten children due to his brotherly relationship with Jack. They all even called him Uncle Felix. When he brought his friend's 2 children to their school party, he let them fend for themselves and wandered to the adult section, drinking heavily. In one of the tapes, Ed even asks Felix if he's okay to drive while they're in the car. Molly seems concerned for Felix and tells him that she heard drinking alcohol is bad. He insists that he's just tired, but ultimately drives them all off a cliff and buries the 2 dead children in the forest, digging himself a grave next to them, though he obviously doesn't stay there. Despite this, he's stricken with guilt and grief about his actions and becomes a wreck. After being literally haunted by the ghost of the 2 children, he finally confesses to Jack and Rosemary what he'd done. It's unclear how they responded, but Jack went missing just 6 days later. After Jack's disappearance, Felix tries to move on and keep going with the business, hence the genesis of the Relocate project. It doesn't work. In 1975, he meets a character named Hillary Barkley, who reports he tried to force himself to seem charismatic and was endlessly fidgety and nervous. His mental state could be a major contributing factor to the slow progress of the relocation project. Bond the Dancing Bunny is the animatronic mascot of Bond's Burgers. Being the mascot for Bond's Burgers, Bond is present throughout all of the tapes and promotional material. He's also the main antagonist of the series and responsible for a number of character deaths. In good repair, he's a blue and white humanoid rabbit with a red bow tie. When he becomes possessed by Bond, the spirit, and falls into disrepair, he has organic-looking human eyes with blood vessels. The mechanics of the animatronic underneath the blue fur shows particularly around the joints, and he has sharp teeth. Bond is a bit of a weepy killer. Despite the many victims under his belt and the sheer brutality of the killings, he's shown crying or covering his face during the act. After he stuffs the victims' bodies into other animatronics, insisting that they'll become beautiful in the process, though it's implied he stretches his victims' faces over the machinery of the robotic heads. It's not clear who he truly is or how he came to be, though some theorize that Bond is possessed with the spirit of Jack because he doesn't begin moving of his own accord until after Jack's disappearance. Rosemary Walten. Rosemary Peony Walten is the wife of Jack. A kind yet protective soul, Rosemary struggled to cope after the death of her children and the disappearance of her husband. She blamed herself, stopped taking care of her appearance, and experienced symptoms of depression, visible to Sophie even when she tried to hide it. She became, however, overprotective of her daughter, which strained their relationship somewhat. After Jack's disappearance, she began frequenting Bond's Burgers, hoping to find him there one day, or at least discuss the circumstances of his disappearance and uncover some answers. According to accounts by Richie, a character working at the restaurant during her visits, she was acting abnormally, and he believed something was wrong with her. I can't imagine why. Just the destruction of most of her family. Because Rosemary designed the characters for her husband's restaurant, she created Shaw the sheep as a self-insert. Shaw is a gentle character with obviously a fluffy wool coat. Rosemary herself has fluffy curly hair. When Rosemary heard a voice beckoning her to the backstage area of the restaurant one night during a visit, the voice claiming to know where to find Jack, she encountered Bond and he attacked. He brutalized her, dismembered her, and stuffed her body into Shaw in an attempt to fix her and make her beautiful. From then on, Rosemary Walten possessed the robotic character she created for herself, trapped in the terror and confusion of trying to understand what happened to her. At least it's a cute little sheep and not one of the most common phobias like perhaps a clown. Billy. Billy the clown looks like a nightmare realm Ronald McDonald. He has curly red hair, big red shoes, a red nose, a white face, and green overalls. In Bunny Farm, he runs a few of the mini-games and facilitates Sophie's recollection of some previous events. He has the same upbeat attitude as the others, but he is not a member of the Showstoppers, the four main characters. He's reserved for birthday parties and is possessed with the spirit of Ashley Parks, one of the technicians working at the warehouse to restore the animatronics for the Relocate project. When Ashley Parks finds Billy in the warehouse, he plays a birthday song, then says the names Jack, Susan, Charles, Rosemary, Sophie. Bond then attacks her and stuffs her into Billy. It's unknown what significance the names have to each other because Sophie hasn't died, and Susan and Charles aren't related to the Waldens. Susan Woodings. Susan Woodings was the lead technician for Bunny Smiles Inc. and the technical supervisor for Cyberfun Tech. She was a closeted lesbian, and she was a workaholic who lived on coffee and seemed tired most of the time. She didn't design the animatronic characters' appearances, but she did create the machinery that made them function, working closely with Jack and Felix in the process. She was also Bond's very first victim, dying sometime after Jack's disappearance. While testing animatronics with a coworker on tape, Bond breaks Susan's neck, paralyzing her and knocking her unconscious. While she's unconscious, Bond mutilates her face and stuffs her into an animatronic. She wakes up inside Banny a short time later. Despite her circumstances, she repeatedly tries unsuccessfully to escape the restaurant. Banny is one of the four showstoppers for Bond's Burgers and is a giant purple rabbit. Although the animatronic herself doesn't have a personality of her own accord, she's shown in Bunny Farm to be childlike and upbeat, maybe even quirky. She's confirmed to be 16 in the promotional material, which is why she's so exuberant and immature. Susan, in contrast, is wry, sarcastic, intelligent, and often looks a bit serious. She dressed conservatively in life, wearing brown shoes, slacks, and a green shirt with a white collar. She liked to joke around, but was serious and driven when it came to work. Sophie Walten. Sophie Walten is the eldest daughter of Jack and Rosemary. Sophie finally makes a direct appearance in the story once she's grown up, several years after her father's disappearance. She inherited curly hair from her mother and tan skin, thick eyebrows, and a long, sloped nose from her father. She is the only surviving member of the family, but she doesn't seem to remember any of the tragic events in her life, although she somehow dimly recognizes her family in cartoon form. After her mother's disappearance, she is interviewed at the police department, but she can't or won't answer their questions. She takes medication that makes her quiet and sedentary, presumably prescribed initially as a way to deal with her trauma, but had a peculiar side effect of amnesia that nobody in her life attempted to rectify. Despite her awkwardness, she's shown to have inherited some of her father's anger issues and is sometimes rude or aggressive. Shocking for a traumatized and isolated young woman. What a jerk. Fans theorize that upcoming episodes will show more of Sophie's past, including who took care of her after the disappearances of her parents. We do know that she lived in the back of a meat store for roughly 3 years due to finances, which couldn't have been too bad. Air conditioning included. Score. She plays an arcade game called Bunny Farm in 1982 when she's 22 years old. That depicts Bond's Burgers and some of the horrors that took place. She tells her best friend and girlfriend, Jenny Letterson, that the art seems so familiar. Jenny was the one who urged Sophie to check out the 8-bit horror show, so we're a bit curious about Jenny's intentions. The game depicts various deaths, including her mother and siblings, and depicts Felix's reckless actions, which affect Sophie profoundly. After playing the arcade game, she begins working for Bunny Smiles Inc., presumably to investigate the mysterious events surrounding the company, her spotty memory, and her family. It's theorized that Sophie will take on more of a protagonist role in the upcoming season. Brian Stells. Brian Stells is Bond's most recent victim. He was sent into the warehouse as part of the Relocate project to restore the animatronics. He has blonde, shaggy hair, wispy facial hair, and is of average height and build. Sort of an average Joe. In his first appearance, he's having trouble finding the facility and arriving for his first day on the job. Weird that the creepy warehouse full of disheveled robots and dead bodies wasn't on a map. When he finally finds and enters the building, he remarks on the smell. Unbeknownst to him, Ashley Park's body was already rotting inside. Upon finding Bond, Brian begins working on him, checking various parts and joints, and is subsequently attacked and chased out of the facility. Bond catches and finally kills Brian in the forest outside. Brian's spirit remarks, "He thought I was her," referring to Sophie. It's revealed that Bond was, at some point, equipped with a faulty facial recognition software, leading to Bond mistaking a wayfish blonde technician for a tan, half-Chilean young woman. Why Bond wants to kill Sophie when, up to this point, he's been killing somewhat indiscriminately is unclear. He clearly targets the Walten family, but his inclusion of unrelated staff makes his motivations a bit fuzzy. It's worth noting that Bond doesn't bother stuffing Brian into an animatronic, just leaves him out in the forest in a bloody heap. In the episode Bunny Farm, we learn that Brian's disappearance is relatively recent, leading Jenny to believe that Sophie's recognition of the BSI name to have come from the news. At least, that's what she told Sophie. And that's what you missed in Season 1 of the Walten Files. What are your theories for Season 2? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.